it felt huge just being in the stadium and seeing that sort of connection. Certainly second half when Aston Villa got the goal, and at one stage they felt they could go on and win the game. I mean, when you look at that, disallowed goal from Coutinho, I think Stevie's right. It should have been a goal. It was a huge mistake from the referee's assistant and the referee to blow the whistle. We see so often now when, players run offside and they don't put the flag up, even when it's 4 or 5 yards offside. That one's actually onside and it's really tight. So you could argue they've been hard done by towards the end of the game. But there's no doubt, I think it's the first time Stevie's had real questions asked about him as a manager. He went up to Rangers and in the main it was really positive. He's took a huge football club right now, steadied the ship last season, didn't finish the season as well as they would have liked. But obviously with a full pre-season, new players coming in, they want to get off to a flying start. And it just hasn't happened for them. And, today, the way the team's set up, the knives could have really been out after this game. When you play against City, teams sometimes are down 2 or 3 after 20 minutes. So I'm sure that was a real fear going into this game. So you can see in his interview how proud he is.
Yeah, as you said, it could have been even better, and we will look at that disallowed Coutinho goal a little bit later on. But in terms of the way that he approached this game, he talked about the tweaks that he made. He certainly went a little bit more pragmatic in terms of his team selection at the beginning. Do you think that he can start to introduce that more in the fixtures coming up?
Well, I know when Stevie first came in, that he said to me the big red flag at the time was the amount of goals Aston Villa were conceding. So when Stevie came in, he made them a lot more solid and strong defensively, and that's how they picked up results. And from there, he's obviously tried to add a little bit more, maybe magic to the team. Obviously, Coutinho came in the January, signed him in the summer. But, I mean, we're talking about them, obviously, not putting the real attacking players in that they've had all season. The problem with putting those players in, it's not a case that they've been attacking really well and then being open because those players are in. They're near the bottom in all the stats, attacking-wise. So even though they've had a Coutinho or a Buendia in at different times or 2 up front, they haven't created an awful lot, haven't scored a lot of goals and haven't looked that threatening. So if you've got your real attacking players on the pitch and you're not creating and causing problems for the opposition, you might as well then think, well, OK, let's make ourselves stronger defensively, because they've actually had problems at both ends of the pitch. But, to keep a Manchester City team to just 1 goal, and yes, Man City had a couple of chances, but nothing that you'd normally associate with Manchester City. I think it's a real pat on the back for Stevie and his coaching staff and the work that they've done this week, and also the players that they picked to produce that performance.
Dion, as you've said as well, it's not necessarily going to be the way that he approaches every game, particularly at Villa Park. But when you look at the games that Villa have coming up, is there an opportunity here to build on this result, this draw against the champions, and start to try and get Villa further up the table, as Steven Gerrard said he's looking to do? Yeah,
they would have wanted to get this one out of the way, with as little damage as possible, and they've actually done that. And Stevie's got it bang on. The performance from the players was brilliant. But now they have to find a way of doing what they did today with the application of what they put in today, and then showing that little bit of flair. Like, Jamie's just said that some of the players that can do all the flair stuff might not want to do the hard yards. So therefore, when you need them, they have to do it. If they don't want to work backwards, you've got to do it going forwards. Today was the game to leave them out. In hindsight, it's a perfect thing, but Stevie got it right, the players got it right. Now they've got to do more.
And as he said, they don't want to over-celebrate, Jamie, a draw, even if it is a draw against Manchester City. But he's looking to start getting wins back on the board. If they don't build on this result and the positivity that this result can bring, it almost feels like even if this one was a free hit, so to speak, it almost feels like this result would be a waste if they can't build on it, particularly in the next 4 fixtures.
Well, I say that about any game that you draw and your players come away with a draw. If you don't win the next game or pick something up, it's 1 point from 6, so it's not a good draw. But today, it was not even so much about the points. It was about the actual performance and galvanising our support who were getting a little bit frustrated at how things are going right now. It's a big football club, and Stevie knows more than anyone where Aston Villa need to be, where they want to be. Certainly a top half team who eventually can, maybe get in the European positions. That's what they'll want to do. It's been a difficult start, but it's very early. But you look at the games that they have coming now. It'd be really interesting how Stevie goes into those games, because as Dean's just mentioned, the games that maybe Aston Villa would maybe want to be on the front foot a little bit. They might have more of the ball. They might need to break the opposition down, so there might be room for a Coutinho or a Buendia from the bench. And when you actually look at the team today, we're only talking about one player really. We're talking about maybe Ramsey going back into midfield and a Coutinho or a Buendia playing. So we're not talking about 3 or 4 changes. So I think it's easy to tweak that, considering what the opposition is. And I think Dion's right, in certain games, those players still have a huge role to play.
Carol, what was the reaction when the fans seen how Stevie set out the side? Were there moaning groans? Was there expectation? Because they won't want that kind of football.
I mean, listen, the crowd stayed with them, but I think there's a realisation from every set of supporters in this country. When you play Man City, they are going to have the ball. And I think there's a real understanding of that now. I think supporters are so knowledgeable, you know, the teams they're up against so well, their own team. And I don't think there's any problem when you accept the opposition to have the ball when they're as good as Manchester City. As long as you're committed, you're obviously going to put, you know, your body on the line, put challenges in. But it's very difficult for a crowd to get involved and build a connection between, you know, the stands and the pitch when your team hasn't got the ball and is not creating chances. So that came in the second half on the back of Leon Bailey's goal. And I think Stevie mentioned in his interview what I said throughout the first half. Really good work from the team, really organised, but they just had to be a little bit braver in possession and try and give themselves a little bit of a threat. One, to stave off the pressure from Manchester City, but also to get the crowd involved. And when you play Man City at home, you need the crowd. It's not just 11 v 11. You can't take them on. I don't think many teams, if any, in Wales football can. Even when Liverpool play them at Anfield, they need the crowd to really get after you know, the opposition. And that's what they got in the second half. And that's where, obviously, the Coutinho, you know, should be a goal comes from. There was a couple of opportunities where Ramsey got down the left again. I think Nathan Ake did really well. But it was more of a threat where they could get the crowd involved and build some sort of atmosphere in the ground.